piece of junk.
Hi there and welcome to Trash Compactor. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to put together the Incinerator backpack, blaster, pauldron and how to paint them all. So this video is going to focus on an item that's available in my Etsy store. It's a resin 3D printed incinerator pack and also includes the rubber attachment for you to attach to the flame throwing gun as well as a pauldron to paint. So this is a kit. It does involve a little bit of painting, as it's down to the customizer to make it how they want it to look. So first things first is you want to get a nice gloss black in any make, one that's got decent coverage. I'm using a Humbrol one here. You can use a satin if you don't want so much of a shine, or gloss suit the look of the figure, the vintage style. First thing I'm going to be doing is completely painting the incinerator backpack, slightly watering down my black so it's a little bit more fluid to get easy coverage. I want to be very liberal with this and careful that I don't fill in any of the details with paint. So making sure you give it a good spread, cover the whole of the backpack. Though the resin is printed in black, you do get very fine shiny lines which are very noticeable, so you could leave it as it was if you wanted, but as I said, it's up to you how you paint it. My recommendation is go for a gloss black. So once you've given it good coverage, you can get a dry brush and then go over it again with the dry brush to make sure the paint is spread. Once you've done that, put it to the side, let it dry off. Next thing is the flamethrower. Again, using the same paint, give that a good cover, making sure that you don't fill in any of the small holes or cover any of the detail with huge amounts of paint. You literally just want to give it a good covering just to give it an even tone. And again, because resin is brittle, be very careful how you handle it, because the last thing you want to do is snap anything. Unfortunately, resin isn't as pliable as a PLA plastic. You don't get any bend in it. It does shatter. So once you've given the backpack and the gun a good cover, you need to put them to the side and leave them to dry. So that's all dried off now. As you can see, it's given it a better look and feel. There are slight ridges on the backpack, and for these you want to paint these in the same red to match the colour of your incinerator trooper's armour. So if you've done it blue, do them blue. If you've done it red, do it red. You need a very fine brush here, and what you just want to be doing is painting on the ridges that go around the tanks. If you do make any mistakes and it comes off, you can just touch over it with the black paint. As you can see, I made a little bit of a boo-boo there in the middle. I'll just get a bit of black, paint over that, gone. Also, once I've got the red on, I'm just using the black to touch up where it started to dry. Resin can be quite absorbent. You could prime these if you wanted. Because it's such a small piece, it's really not necessary to prime it, but again, it depends on your level of finish that you're looking for. So that's all dried off now. Next thing you want to do is be attaching the 2mm rubber hose. There is a small hole in the top of the tank. What you need to do is daub a very small amount of super glue onto the little rubber hose, and then it is a case of popping the rubber hose into the large hole at the top of the backpack. It will go in a few millimeters, but once you've got it in, just hold it there briefly and it will stick. Once that's dried off, next thing to do is do the same to the other end, and on the Incinerator Trooper blaster you have a choice of two holes. There's one on the side and there's one on the bottom. So it depends on where you want the Incinerator Trooper hose to attach. I'm putting this one in on the bottom hole. That means that when the Incinerator Trooper is holding it, it will go under his arm. If you put it on the side, it means it will go over his arm. So again, it's entirely down to you as a customizer where the hose goes. So while that's all drying, the next thing to do is the Stormtrooper pauldron. So this is unpainted. So with this one, I'm just going to get the red paint straight on. Now this red paint does have good coverage. It tends to need several coats when you're painting onto a dark surface. This isn't primed. You could prime it if you wanted to. I'm not. because what I'm doing, I'm being very generous with the paint and making sure I paint up to the edges, as there is a slight ridge that's lifted up where the colour should go. I'm being very liberal with the paint, making sure I get the little air bubbles out. As you can see, it's being painted on very thick. Making sure I get that, go around that little circle indent that's at the front of the pauldron to make it look as smooth as possible. You may have a brand of paint that you prefer to use that's got really nice thick coverage. I do like the Humbrol acrylic paint. You just have to sometimes, depending on what you're using it for, change the way you paint. And with me using this medium-sized brush with quite a lot of paint, it gives me an opportunity to push the paint up to the side without going over the ridge. And again, if you do go over the ridge, you can just paint the edge black. Just a case of being very careful and having a very steady hand. So that's got a lot of paint on it, so I'm going to leave that to dry off completely before I do any more painting. So I've got the black gloss. I'm just going to touch up the front clip that clips around the front of the Stormtrooper's neck, paint that black, and then leave that to dry off. So everything's had a good time to dry off now. Nothing's tacky. Ideally leave it overnight. Now there's a bit of a knack to how you can get this on the figure. Because this is a retro Stormtrooper, on the vintage ones, when you clip it on, it will just clip on the side. But with the retro figures, they tend to have a very thin white ridge of plastic on the waist. So you've got to be careful that that isn't stopping the clip from moving onto your figure. If your ridge is quite prominent, you could just shave it off very slightly with a Stanley knife. So to put the incinerator pack onto your Stormtrooper, it's just a case of clipping it in around the waist. Once you've done that, the clip will go on nice and easy. You'll hear it click on to the figure. It's very sturdy and fits in over the OII on the, which when I was a kid thought meant oil, and that's where you oiled your Stormtroopers. I had no idea why I thought that. And then for the blaster, for him to hold it, because Stormtroopers are really crap at holding weapons, the idea is that you can clip it into the hand. Now if you just leave it, it will fall out because it's just like a normal blaster. So what you have to do is slightly get it into the hand and then slightly bend the Stormtrooper's arm outwards just a little, so then the butt of the flamethrower clips under the arm. But again, just try again, clip it into the hand, then bend the arm outwards and it will clip under, and then it should stay there. Next thing to do is to clip on the pauldron, so make sure this is completely dry. And this is quite easy because it fits in around the shape of the Stormtrooper, so you just slide it onto the side at a little bit of an angle, tilt the front down so it just starts to go around the neck, and then it will just clip in and it will stay there all on its own, won't go anywhere. And there we go, there is the Incinerator backpack all painted on the painted Incinerator Trooper. You may need to adjust his legs just a little bit to get him to stand up straight because there's now extra weight on the back of the figure, but this will display nicely. And there he is. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do subscribe. If you've got any suggestions for future builds or future projects, or by any means anything that you wish to see possibly in my Etsy store, do let me know. Thanks again. See you soon.
What a piece of junk!